Ghosts, the spirits of the dead. Whether they are real or not, the concept of them has provided great material for stories to be written about them. Ghost stories, if you will. I mean, have you guys ever seen Paranormal Activity? Items dropping on the floor by themselves? That's pretty scary, right?
Holy shit!
Growing up, actually, ghosts used to be one of my childhood fears. But nowadays, I've grown to love the paranormal and enjoy all sorts of media revolving around them, especially in the realm of video games. Which leads me to talk about the game that we are focusing on today, Fatal Frame, or as it's called in Europe and Australia, Project Zero. Horrible name, by the way, but hey, at least we got the cooler box art. I mean, look at this and then compare it to this. That is hideous. Yeah, I know I'm playing the European version of this game, but I'm gonna keep on calling it Fatal Frame because it sounds cooler. Fatal Frame is a series created by Makoto Shibata and Keisuke Kikuchi, and was developed by Koei Tecmo, who are known for publishing games such as Dynasty Warriors, Monster Rancher, and, the Dead or Alive Extreme series. It's extreme, baby! Inspiration for the concept of Fatal Frame came to Shibata after he finished working on the game Tecmo's Deception Invitation to Darkness, where he felt inspired afterwards to work on a game based on what he felt was his own supernatural experiences. Once the PlayStation 2 hardware was introduced to the team, development began for Fatal Frame under the codename Project Zero. They really did just use the codename for the European version, didn't they? Anyway, Fatal Frame was then announced on July 2001 and then was released on the 13th of December of that year in Japan, with the North American version being released 3 months later. I have heard of the Fatal Frame series on multiple occasions and have had the intention of playing the games eventually, so with the first game finally in my possession, why don't we go ahead and play it, shall we? There's nothing there. Fatal Frame starts off with you playing as Mafuyu Hinasaki, who comes to this place called the Himuro Mansion to search for his mentor and close friend, Junsei Takamine, a novelist who mysteriously disappeared with 2 other people working for him while investigating the mansion to write about it for his next book. Shortly after searching around, though, he starts seeing the spirits of the dead walking around the mansion, and it isn't long until he ends up getting attacked by one. Thankfully though, Mafuyu came prepared and brought along a special camera that his mom previously owned, which has the ability to capture ghosts.
I captured a ghost with this camera. This camera has the power to expose things the normal eye can't see. I remember the incident from which I learned.
Who is he talking to? Shortly after Mafuyu's encounter with the ghost, the game fast forwards 2 weeks later where we follow Mafuyu's sister Miku, who we play as for the rest of the game. After not hearing from her brother for 2 weeks, Miku decides to come to the mansion to go searching for him, while also mentioning that aside from Mafuyu's disappearance, she also feels like something was calling her to the mansion as well. Shortly after entering the mansion, Miku finds the camera that Mafuyu brought with him lying on the ground. As she goes to pick up the camera, we are then shown a flashback of Mafuyu trying to get away from something. After the flashback ends, we now move on ahead to find more information on what exactly happened to Mafuyu, as well as the other people who disappeared at the mansion. Fatal Frame plays out like any other survival horror game that you have played. You explore around the map, you pick up key items and solve puzzles to unlock new pathways to progress, you know, the usual survival horror stuff. The main thing that sets Fatal Frame apart from other survival horror game franchises, though, is its main gimmick of photography with the inclusion of the special camera. While exploring the mansion, Miku will occasionally be attacked by the ghosts that are haunting it, which you can tell if a hostile ghost is near if the indicator on the bottom right turns orange. To fend yourself from the ghost, what you need to do is simply aim the camera at the ghost and shoot at it until you drive it away. But you do have a limited amount of film to use with the camera, so you should always be wary of how much film that you are shooting off. What you can do to conserve film is to try and make sure that every shot that you take deals as much damage as possible, which you can do that by charging up the camera's spirit power. How you charge up the camera's spirit power is by hovering the circle over the ghost, which starts charging this meter whenever the ghost is within the circle. Once you have finished charging up the camera, you can then unleash that power towards the ghost to deal extra amounts of damage. Another way you can deal extra damage though is if you are able to take a shot of the ghost at the right time when the circle starts glowing orange, you will not only deal heavy damage, but your shot will also push the ghost away, creating a safe distance between you and the ghost. Once you have driven the ghost away, you are rewarded with some spirit points which are used to upgrade your camera, and sometimes key items depending on whether the ghost encounter was scripted or not. Fending off ghosts is not the only purpose of the camera though. The camera can also be used to reveal things such as hints on where to go or what you need to do next. And it can also be used to take pictures of hidden ghosts. You can tell whether you are near a hidden ghost if you start hearing some crackling noises, as well as if you look through the camera and search around, the circle will start glowing blue once you are aiming at the right spot. Ah, well ain't that a nice picture of a burned man? Ugh. Well, what do we have? Is that his cock? I didn't know this during my playthrough, but apparently if you take a picture of all of the hidden ghosts in the game, you unlock something called the Zero ability, which is cool. But I didn't end up getting it or even knew anything about it while recording this video, so I don't care. For real though, I really gotta talk about the inclusion of the camera for a bit. I really like the combination between the fixed camera angle style while exploring the mansion, and the inclusion of the first-person perspective through looking through the camera. Which although doesn't sound like much, but I personally thought that it really added to the gameplay. The camera not only makes the combat stand out compared to other survival horror games, but the inclusion of the first-person view allows you to take a closer look at different details around the map, and sometimes you can even take notice of things you might have missed along the way while roaming around the mansion through using the first-person view. As I mentioned before, you do have a limited amount of film to use for your camera, so of course don't go out there flashing everything you see. Wait, let me reword that. But scattered throughout the mansion, you can find 4 different types of film with different levels of spiritual power. The blue film being the weakest one, while the gold film being the most powerful. That being said, although you have to be wary of how much film that you are using, for the blue film though, you can easily replenish them back to 30 at a save point, but only if you have under 30 rolls of blue film. I unfortunately did not know that you could do that, so whenever I ran out of film, I would go on a wild goose chase multiple times around the map, trying my best to evade all of the ghosts, and desperately interacting with literally anything to find some film, unknowing I could have just gone to a save point and just replenished there. God damn it. That being said though, although I did find the game to be way easier knowing that I could replenish my film at any time, I kind of felt like it made the game a bit too easy, and it also made running into ghosts not that frightening anymore. Mostly due to the fact that I no longer have the worry of being unable to defend myself, which is unfortunate since I do like that challenge to try and conserve ammunition to survive. Another useful item that you can pick up around the mansion are spirit stones, which are used to use special abilities like paralysis and other abilities like that once you unlock them. I didn't really find myself getting too many game overs, but one item that definitely saved my ass a lot is the stone mirror, which is basically an extra life which refills Miku's health whenever it hits 0. You can only carry one at a time though, so it is definitely a good idea to keep notes of where each stone mirror is located in case you need to grab another one later. The whole game spans around 4 nights in the mansion, each night focusing on an event that took place inside of it. And as we thoroughly investigate the location, we gather many different pieces of information found through the forms of things such as flashbacks, journal entries and news articles, and even some audio tapes left by Junsei Takamine and his team being one of the more recent documentations on the mansion. Some pieces of key information that we learn about revolves around the sacred but cruel rituals that the Himuro family used to perform that involves these women who are chosen to take up the role of the rope shrine maidens. The purpose of these rituals were done to try and prevent this event called the Calamity, which is an event that the Himuro family tried to stop, but in the end ultimately failed. As we visit different locations around the mansion, we also occasionally see the ghosts of 2 girls in kimonos. One of them being a child who helps guide Miku throughout the game, while the other is a woman with really long hair named Kyrie, who seems to be the one behind the disappearances at the mansion. At the end of each chapter, Miku is cornered and attacked by Kyrie, and unlike the other ghosts in the game, Kyrie cannot be harmed by the camera. After Miku gets attacked by Kyrie for the first time, she wakes up with rope marks on her body, signifying that she has been cursed by Kyrie. Reading from past journal entries, how the curse works is that as time goes on, more and more rope marks start appearing on the body, and once the final rope mark appears on the neck, it's basically game over for the victim. So now, aside from us trying to find our missing brother, we now need to find a way to reverse the curse that is placed upon us before it's too late. I really enjoyed investigating Fatal Frame's lore, and I got very invested in trying to piece together all of the information that I could find. One feature that made piecing together information a lot easier though was the in-game correlation chart that shows you all of the characters that you hear about, as well as their relationships with other characters, which is not only a cool feature to have, but it was also very helpful. The puzzles in this game are quite simple though, and honestly, I don't think they are really too much to write home about. There are no crazy riddles that you need to figure out like you would in games like Silent Hill, and most of the puzzles are just you placing objects in a certain place or sliding a bunch of things around to get the door open. Of course, I'm not saying that simplicity is a bad thing, I'm just saying that many of the puzzles weren't that memorable to me. I will have to say though that I didn't really find Fatal Frame to be all that scary, but I did find the overall ambience to be very eerie and thought the developers did a great job of creating such a haunting atmosphere, the sound design being a huge contributing factor to the overall eeriness of the game. I do have a few minor problems with the game though, one of them being that the controls for when you are looking through the camera are a bit weird. For example, imagine you are playing a first-person shooter game with a controller. Naturally, you would think you would use the left thumbstick to move and the right thumbstick to aim, right? Well, forget about that, cause in Fatal Frame, it is the complete opposite. Left thumbstick to aim and right thumbstick to move around, which, as you can imagine, feels a bit odd. Of course, you do get used to these types of controls eventually, but it would have been nice to have the option to change it to something you are more used to. Another thing that bothered me as well is how slowly Miku opens doors. Like seriously, there are so many times in the game where I was getting chased by a ghost and I would take unnecessary damage cause Miku is taking her sweet old time to get the door open. But wait, it's not just doors that Miku has trouble using. Allow me to introduce you to ladders. Absolutely incredible. But one of my biggest issues with the game was when you needed to switch out film, because it just feels bulky and tedious. To switch out your film, what you need to do is first open up your menu, go to the camera or items menu, and then select the film you want to switch to. Which really isn't too bad, but it does get pretty annoying, and I would have much preferred if I could just rotate to the next film with a click of a button. With all that being said though, I did find all of these flaws to be a small thing, and none of them really ruined my experience with the game at all. But anyway, after a thorough investigation, we find out that there are 3 rituals that the Himuro family performed at the mansion, which, as I said earlier on in the video, the purpose of these rituals were done to try and prevent something called the Calamity from happening. Those rituals being the Blind Demon Ritual, the Demon Tag Ritual, and the third and final one being the Strangling Ritual. The blinding and demon tag ritual are done to find out who out of the selected group of young girls has the most holy power to be chosen to become a rope shrine maiden for the strangling ritual. Which the strangling ritual is a procedure where the chosen maiden, once the time is right, is sacrificed through the use of ropes that tear her apart, which her blood is used to soak the ropes with holy power. Once the ropes have been imbued with the holy strength of the rope shrine maiden, the ropes are then used to seal the gates of hell. If the gates were to open though, malice will spill out of the doors, thus welcoming the calamity. It seems that the last time they tried to seal the gates though failed, which allowed Hell's Gates to open up and spread malice across the mansion, killing all of its inhabitants in the process, the ghosts that attack us throughout the game being some of them who are still trapped in the mansion. On the final night of the game, we start learning more about Kyrie, who was the last rope shrine maiden of the mansion, and her life leading up to the game's events. For most of a rope shrine maiden's life, they are pretty much sheltered away from the rest of the world, being unable to leave the mansion and spend most of their days stuck in a cage-like room. The purpose of the maidens being sheltered away was to make sure that the maiden is ritualistically pure by making them have no attachments to the world around them. Rope shrine maidens do have some freedoms though once they have fully accepted their role, such as eventually being permitted to leave their room to do things such as greet visitors of the mansion. One day though, Kyrie ends up falling in love with a guest of the mansion, who oddly enough looks pretty much like Mafuyu. The Himuro Mansion's master at the time, fearing that the man would disrupt the ritual, has him killed off, but tells Kyrie that he has left the mansion. However, Kyrie ends up finding out that the man was killed after seeing his ghost appear in her dreams. Due to all the circumstances leading up to the day of the ritual, Kyrie ends up becoming attached to life, thus making the ritual fail once the time came. Due to malice spilling out of Hell's Gate, the mansion is now haunted by the spirits of the people who died inside of the mansion. The malice caused causing them all to be hostile, with Kyrie being the most powerful spirit out of all of them. It is said though that the Himuro family had a holy mirror that acted as an extra layer of protection, which would have been used to repel the malice spilling out of Hell's Gate if it were to open. But due to Hell's Gate opening up so abruptly when the ritual failed, the mirror was unfortunately shattered into 5 pieces. Throughout the game, Miku finds pieces of the holy mirror in various places scattered around the mansion in order to try and seal off Hell's Gates once more. After a long search, we only managed to find 4 pieces of the mirror, the final one seeming to be missing. With most of the pieces of the holy mirror in our possession though, we start making our way to the final area of the game, which takes place underground where both the rope altar used in the Strangling Ritual and the gates of hell are located. On our way to the gates though, we find notes left by Mafuyu talking to Miku directly. In the notes, Mafuyu reveals that the 2 girls in kimonos that we encounter throughout the mansion are actually both Kyrie, and also explains that when malice was spread across the mansion, that caused Kyrie's soul to split into 2. Child Kyrie, who guides us around, represents her desire to fulfill her role as the Rope Shrine Maiden, while adult Kyrie is her soul that has been corrupted by malice. Once we reach Hell's Gate, we finally find Mafuyu, who is surprisingly still alive. And now is the time that we finally face off with Kyrie. After firing a few shots at her, the camera ends up exploding, which reveals that the last piece of the Holy Mirror was inside of the camera the entire time. After putting together the Holy Mirror, we then use it to return Kyrie's soul back to normal. Kyrie now goes on ahead to fulfill her duty as the Rope Shrine Maiden, where she will remain here to keep Hell's Gate sealed. Alright Mafuyu, let's go head off and...
Miku, I must stay.
What?
What are you saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying, just what? Are you seriously gonna stay for some ghost pussy? What?
Without me.
Mafuyu! What? In conclusion, I really enjoyed Fatal Frame. I love the way that the lore just reeled me in, and I also really love the inclusion of the camera, adding a first-person view to the mainly fixed camera angle survival horror style. I do wish that the puzzles were a little bit more memorable, but other than that, I still really enjoyed my time with the game. I am incredibly excited to check out the rest of the games in the Fatal Frame series, specifically Fatal Frame 2, which is, from what I've heard, the best game in the entire series. So yeah. Stay tuned for that. But anyway guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye bye.